Judgment. Final judgment. Final
Man, welcome in everybody right here on the Final Judgment. Tony, Jigsaw, Cutillo. Man, I had to go late. I was going to go tomorrow, but I had to go late. Why not go late and be excited? Right? Let's be excited. Right? Obviously brought to you by Heat Ratio Sports, Win Daily Sports, and most importantly, the flagship sponsor of this show, SEObrand.com. Phillies clinched the wild card finally in most fitting fashion, right? Why worry about Milwaukee? Yeah, Arizona, we're worried about Arizona. They can't do anything. They pull a Bill Buckner, right? And Milwaukee win, whatever. But we take care of business. It hasn't been easy, man. Hasn't been easy. Jays, what's going on? Jovan checking in. How about those fighting Phils? Jovan, that's why I had to go. I wasn't going to go. I was going to go tomorrow, but I'm so excited. Got a great show playing for tonight. Obviously, the news of the Phillies is obviously going to be judgment number one. We talk Kyle Schwarber, about Aaron Nola. How fitting is it that Zach Eflin closes the game? We got the Eagles, who remain undefeated, right? Still 4-0, taking care of business. Albert Pujols setting more records, and a great interview for Kayla Santiago from Delmarva Sports Connection. Kayla Santiago joins me talking all things Eagles, NFL, collegiate sports, and this crazy thing called sports media. You got to check it out. That'll be played really soon. We'll play about half of the interview, and then you can catch the rest on podcast on the YouTube page. Make sure you're following the YouTube page, The Final Judgment with Tony Cutillo. Make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you're following. Most importantly, on Twitter, Judge Jigsaw, on Instagram, Judge Jigsaw. Man, you know what's going on. Let's just talk about these damn Phillies. Right? I mean, talk about an emotional roller coaster. And honestly, be honest. Check in. Okay, let me know. How you feeling right now? How you feeling right now? That's what I want to know. James already checking in. James, let me know how you feeling with these Eagles. I know Javon's happy. Listen, man, it's all happening. Even got my mom checking in. Mom watched the show saying go Phillies. She's staying up to watch the Phillies. Everybody's watching the damn Phillies, right? Everybody's excited. We've gone through hell and back with these Philadelphia Phillies. And how fitting is it that you have Kyle Schwarber just lead off the game with the home run? Listen, 45-46 tonight. Okay, 45-46. We have not seen that kind of statistical output from a free agent since Jim Thome. And we remember how special it was with Jim Thome. Listen, man, I'm getting chills right now. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, seriously, like I'm getting chills. I threw that trash football game off, that Rams and 49ers trash. Abomination, whatever. I know the 49ers won, but it didn't help me any. I didn't win any of my bets. It's killing me tonight. Nobody showed up. George Kittle, he might just go with WWE because they don't even use him. But let's get right back into these Phillies, man. You know, the September collapse was upon us. It really was. And we all felt it. I think the players felt it too. And I know there was a lot of questions about the Rob Thompson effect. You know, and obviously, right? If we're going to watch this collapse once again, everybody's sitting there thinking to themselves and saying, you know what? Is this going to be the right guy going forward? And maybe this is the right guy because he didn't get out of tune. He stayed mild mannered. He stayed professional with that target in retrospect and said, you know what? We're going to do this. And what he did right now tonight, it just proves to you that. It proves to you because you got to understand the kind of guy that Rob Thompson is. Family guy, baseball lifer, right? Been around the game forever. You ask a lot of people, a lot of Yankees, right? Did a lot of time with the Yankees. Who ran the best training camp? They say Rob Thompson. Who was the best bench coach? They say Rob Thompson. Highly respected around Major League Baseball. And you know why? For the move that he did tonight. The move that he did tonight, and what that was he took a guy in Zach Eflin. The end of the game sums up the entire Rob Thompson era right now. And it's not finished by any means, but right now sums up the entire era. What it does is it sums up exactly the reason why Rob Thompson is so respected amongst Major League Baseball. He took a guy who has been through hell in the last 2 years. Knee injury after knee injury. Okay. Man, listen, do you understand? I'm telling you right now, I know how it feels. I'm injured, right? I just had my first physical therapy session tonight, and goddamn, my leg is killing me. Throbbing, still can't walk right. Okay, so I know what these athletes go through, and they have a lot of pride because they know that they're good. They know they need to be battle tested, and they know they want to be out there when they can't. When Bryce Harper was hurt, he was dying at the chance to get in there and swing it back. And what Rob Thompson did was he took Zach Eflin, it made him close that game out. And you saw how excited and jubilant and fired up Zach Eflin was after that. That is why Rob Thompson knew he needed that moment. Absolutely. Mike O'Brien checking and say, go Phils. Hell yes, go Phils. Okay, go Phils. Listen, we goddamn deserve this, man. Like, it's been a long time running. I'm not even worried about it. Listen, I don't even care. I'm gonna be honest with you. I know people say you shouldn't care about X. Listen, I don't want to know whether it's the Cardinals 3-game series, where it's going to be played. I don't even care. All I know is we finally made it, and that's what's important. James seconded with a little football comment, says, I'm a 49ers fan, but I live in an Eagles area and they are fun to watch. I remember about a year ago when the Niners beat the Eagles, and I said the Eagles only lost because they couldn't win in the trenches. And now look at them 4-0. We're going to get the Eagles talk later. Absolutely. I agree. Nicholas B checking this is going back and forth to the Brewer. Nick, that's what was killing me. It was killing me. Okay. Because again, I'm sitting there, and at first I'm like, I don't know. Do I want to watch it? And full transparency. Obviously, make sure you're following Win Daily Sports for all your sports betting and prop needs, DFS. Following Heat Ratio Sports for all your local and national sports needs. Got all kinds of content going on over there. So I'm watching and seeing if my bets come through. And I'm like, wait, what the hell is wrong with me? I'm watching bets on TV, and I'm watching Twitter for updates from Milwaukee and Philly. I must be nuts. I got to turn this game on. Okay, what do? I turn it on. I watch Bryson Stott. Bryson Stott, the guy that everybody said was done. The guy that said he couldn't play when he was bat 170 and 180. Send him back down. Send Bryson back down. He's not the future. What is this team doing? And what does he do again tonight? Proves everybody wrong once again. Listen, there's a reason why we as people are fans. There's a reason why we are sports enthusiasts, right? We get all that. Okay, and there's a reason why there are professionals. Again, Kevin Long. Can we just say that name, Kevin Long? Listen, for the Philadelphia Eagles, we talk about Jeff Stoutland. We talk about Jeff Stoutland being the guy, the secret behind the success of the offensive line. Let's talk about Kevin Long. The secret of the success of the Philadelphia Phillies bats. And I'm not talking about streaks. I get it. They're a streaky team. We got to understand that they're always going to be a streaky team. When you have a guy batting leadoff, hitting 46 to 47 home runs, that's batting 215, okay, and only knocks in 80 RBIs, it's because they're streaky. right? But there's so many storylines from the baseball element when it comes to swinging at bat on this team. Gene Segura, who has been the longest tenured player on that team, did not make the playoffs until now. Bryson Stott, again, like I was saying, bat 170, all of a sudden gets back up to respectability. Guys like Brandon Marsh, who come over, who couldn't hit a 18-wheeler parked in a parking lot, okay, with a baseball bat. The Angels gave up on him. He's done. Guess what? He's batting close to 300 with the Philadelphia Phillies because of Kevin Long. JT Realmuto has a resurgence this year at 32 plus years of age, not only throwing every single runner out, but also reinventing himself at the plate. You know why? Because of Kevin Long. Kevin Long deserves a lot of respect and a lot of credibility and a lot of accolades for what's happening with this baseball team. Again, they are streaky, but damn, are they fun to watch when they're going. And there's a lot of youth injected into this team, more youth than we've seen in a very, very long time. Now, baseball, Major League Baseball playoffs are going to be very interesting, but goddamn, are they exciting. I'm honestly going to tell you that I think it's a tie between the NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball playoffs. Like, I'm an NBA guy. I love the NBA. I like the playoffs. Okay, I get it because obviously everybody knows everybody's just playing for the playoffs. But at the end of the day, Major League Baseball and NHL, that's where the playoffs are at. And then on top of all this, right? On top of all this, we got Albert Pujols hitting number 703. Number 7, King Albert hitting number 703 and passing Babe Ruth for second on the all-time RBI list. I mean, listen, is there a better player in baseball than Albert Pujols? I mean, listen, Philadelphia, let's reminisce a little bit in Philadelphia when there was a guy named the Big Piece, guy named Ryan Howard, who was doing ungodly things at the plate. And then we got into this contract negotiation, which the Philadelphia fans always like to do, worry about like it's their money, okay? And, we're not going to pay them this, we're not going to pay them that. And then everybody's just whispering, we're just going to trade them for Albert Pujols. Let's just trade Albert Pujols straight up because Albert Pujols was going through the contract situation. Ryan Howard was going through the contract situation. Everybody thought Ryan Howard being from St. Louis, they'll just flip and everybody will live in existence. But that didn't happen, right? That didn't happen. And either way, I mean, just to watch what unfolded over the course of time with Albert Pujols, it is remarkable. It really is. And it couldn't happen. Listen, to a nicer guy, I say that with all due respect to any other player in Major League Baseball, but I don't think anybody enjoys the entire element of the game. From Albert Pujols, do yourself a favor. In the days of technology, the advances that are just unlike no other, go on YouTube, watch one of the most recent home runs from Albert Pujols, and just watch him run the bases. He's grimacing with every step. That dude has two of the worst feet imaginable right now. He's got plantar fasciitis, which a lot of people, if you don't know, is a very, very painful foot injury. Or condition, I should say. It's not an injury, it's a condition because it doesn't get any better, right? Albert Pujols is running on like bone and skin on the bottom of his feet, but still playing the game, not because he wants to break a record. He's playing a game that he loves. Listen, Albert Pujols could have hit 698. He would have not come back next year just to hit those 2 home runs, right? This is who Albert Pujols is, and that's what makes him so great. Sometimes in life, when you go through times where, you take the pressure off yourself and you just be yourself and let everything come naturally. There's no stress. There's no push. Everything just happens and it flows. And that's what you see with Albert Pujols. It's like, literally, it's like poetry in motion. So these baseball playoffs are going to be very, very interesting. The Mets collapsed. You got the Braves looking to try to win a division now. Listen, the NL East is where it's at, man. And the playoffs are October is here. The playoffs are here. So shout out to the Phillies. James says, Congratulations to the Phillies and the fans for making the playoffs. Let's go, Mets. Sorry. Love Philly sports radio and Heat Racer sports, but I'm a Mets fan. James, that's all good, man. Listen, if you don't know, if you don't follow us, and, you say Heat Ratio Sports, make sure you're following Win Daily Sports as well. And I got to deal with all those New York guys all the time. Very good friends of mine. They are Mets fans, which is great. We go back and forth. The banter is real. Listen, I get it. The only thing with the Mets, is the health, right? As long as that team can stay healthy, I've always said they're a very, very good team. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not. Yes, the NL East is the best division in baseball. James, I completely agree. The NL East is very underrated. Not a lot. Everybody talks the AL East, the heralded AL East, right? Because of the Yankees and because of the Red Sox and the Blue Jays and the Rays. Everybody talks about the NL East, but nobody talks about NL East. They are where it's at. Brian checking in. Phillies are big sleepers in the first round. See, that's what I want to hear from everybody too. Explain to me. Let me know. How far do you think this team can go? What do you think? Are you going to be disappointed if they don't make it out of the first round? Are you going to be disappointed? I asked that realistically because it could happen. It really could. Like Brian checking in. What do you think? My man, James Sexton says losing Marte. Listen, Marte was a big hurt. No pun intended, but really for the bets. I agree. My man Joe checking in. Phillies getting in by use of the long ball. Going to have to learn how to manufacture quickly as the temps change. And you know what Joe's talking about, man. No humidity in October. There's no humidity in October, which means ball's not going to fly out of the stadium, which means you're going to have to play small ball, right? Hit and run, bunt here and there. I mean, you're going to have to run the bases. Listen, the reason why the Atlanta Braves won the World Series without Ronald Acuna Jr. was not only because they're very talented and very deep, but because they knew how to run the bases and they knew how to play small ball and great defense. So a great point right there. Javon says with Nola and Wheeler locked in, they could upset the Cardinals. Mikolos has not looked good enough for St. Louis. I agree, man. It's always about those. See, that's what people forget, right? That's what people forget. Brian says, not a Philly fan, but in a 3-game series, anything can happen. Right. The piggyback right off of Javon, what he's saying. I agree. Like a lot of people aren't looking. Everybody's talking about 3 and 4. Listen, in the playoffs, the way we were going to be built was going to be getting this wild card 3-game set. And we have 2 of the best pitchers in the game. Not the best, 2 of the best pitchers when they're on. Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. Zach Wheeler, former Cy Young candidate. Listen, I can't say it enough. Can't say it enough. When that dude is on and healthy, his stuff is electric. Aaron Nola, when he's locked in, his stuff is electric. 100%. James says everyone is crying the Dodgers, but we are all 0-0 come Friday. Listen, the Dodgers narrative, that's because everybody, it's LA. And listen, I get it. They're just that lineup is ridiculous. I get it, but I'm worried about the NL East. I don't care about the NL West right now. Let's worry about the NL East. But no, I agree with you. Mike says, if we get the Cards and Braves, I think we can get to the NLCS. That's what I'm expecting. I like that. Mike, I like that. Everybody checking in on YouTube as well. Obviously, this is on 3 different platforms. Make sure you're subscribing to all of them. Make sure you're subscribing to Win Daily Sports for all your sports betting and DFS needs. Heat Ratio Sports. Make sure you're subscribing to that YouTube page as well for local and national sports talk. And make sure you're subscribing to the Final Judgment. This is where you get all the Final Judgment material with yours truly, Tony Jigsaw Cutillo. I appreciate all the support. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe. Make sure you're hitting that like. A lot of interviews we do, a lot of pop-up content. So I will greatly appreciate that, Mike, if you could do that. But I agree. I think that we can beat the Cardinals. This isn't the Cardinals of yesterday. We can definitely do it. Troy says making it to the dance is a win. Big sleepers in the first round, but a few guys are going to have to show up. I like how he says that in caps. I completely agree. Going to have to show up for us. Yes, we can't get streaky in the playoffs, right? We got to go all in. We got to give our best effort. We got to go all in, but it definitely is possible. My man, checking. I know what you're talking about, cuz. They're talking about the planner. I know. Physical therapy right now, man. I'll be back. I will be back. My man Joe checking it says, this town forgets it's just as much a baseball town as Eagles. Get into the division round and watch the insanity. Nothing like it. Joe, I know you remember, just like I do, nothing like 2008 with those rally towels, those white towels, being at those games, watching it on TV at Citizens Bank Park. There's nothing like it. I know we've talked about and we've been disappointed about fans coming out to the field, to the park. A lot of empty seats. I get it. It's not just us. It's all around Major League Baseball. But you will not see that place empty when it comes playoff time. That place will be packed. Like Joe says, it will be insanity. We will be tailgating to the heavens come home, man. It's going to be great. Javon says, Hoskins, listen, I will say this. Everybody knows I'm not a Reese Hoskins guy, okay? And there was about a 70% time of that season, okay, where I would say that the Philly that he was on an MVP kind of run. But I am disappointed, Javon, that he struck out with the bases loaded to end the bottom of the eighth inning. That disappointed me a lot. I'm just going to throw it out there. Or at top of the ninth. That disappointed me because he had a chance to bury them just in case something were to happen. That could have came back to haunt him. Check this out. My man CC watching from Scotland. Game was well worth staying up till 4:30 a.m. for need the back end of the bullpen to step up for the playoffs. Interesting, we went to Eflin tonight. Go Phil. CC, my man checking in. I really we are looking at everywhere across the map right here on the Final Judgment. I absolutely love it. CC, if you can, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button right there on the YouTube page. Final Judgment with Tony Jigsaw Cutillo. I'd greatly appreciate it. Let's keep this going. Tank says the Phillies, Eagles, and all playoff teams, Phillies, Eagles, and 6. And we're going to get the Eagles talking a little bit too. I'm so fired up. I'm forgetting about the Eagles. We are going to talk about them on this episode. And we got Kayla Santiago from the Delmarva Sports Network. Tongue twister. I'm so excited talking all things Philadelphia sports as well. Brian says, NL East, Phillies, Mets, Braves shows you how good the NL East is. Listen, I said it before. I'll say it again. One of the most best kept secrets in baseball. It really is. And you're seeing it. Listen, you are seeing it. It's playing itself out. And again, you're seeing, just like Joe said, this is a baseball town. Looking at this lineup, the best thing I will say is we went through so many head coaches or so many managers, I should say. We went through so many experiments, went through a lot of free agent busts. But CC does say, makes a good point. He says, need the back end of the bullpen to step up for the playoffs. Listen, all I need to say to everybody, please, I hope everybody's still on point with this. I said this a month ago. I'm going to say it again. David Robertson is not my closer, right? Sir Anthony looks spent. He doesn't look like the same guy. Can we please stop all the experiments right now and just insert Jose Alvarado into that closer role for the playoffs? Can we please, for the love of God, for anything good, Rob Thompson, please, are you listening? Will you just insert Alvarado into that closer role and be done? We need somebody to scare the opponent, and nobody else in that bullpen scares me or scares them besides Jose Alvarado. Make it happen, man. This is what you need to do. 100%. Brian says the Marlins still not there yet, but they will make it. They will make it there, hopefully. Listen, the Marlins will forever be a low-budget team, but they will forever breed young talent. Yes, live and die with heat. Alvarado should get the nod. Listen, when you're a closer, I said this before, I'll say it again, and this is not a knock on David Robertson, but think about it. I said this, earlier episodes. I'm going to say the guy doesn't scare me. Like if you pulled up and you got out of the batter's box and you looked on the mound, see David Robertson with socks and the mullet cut and the hat and the 1985 like Richie Cunningham style, you're saying, who's this guy scaring? Nobody. I'm not worried. Like, am I really going with a changeup as my out pitch, like as a closer? No, man, you got to bring the heat. Like Joe says, you got to live and die with the heat. And when you're going 101 on the gun and then 93 on a cutter on the inside of the plate, it's unstoppable. Okay, it's unstoppable. You need a unbelievably scary closer in the playoffs, and that's why I think Alvarado should definitely get the nod. George, my man Tank checks in, says, "Don't forget about Ranger." Listen, the only knock on Ranger I have is those few games where all of a sudden he just lost control. But here's the best part, Tank. Here's the best part about Ranger. Ranger has already showed you that he can go 5 strong. Right? We're talking about the playoffs where you need that entire bullpen to work, which I think is key by getting Eflin back to confidence, because now you have Syndergaard and Eflin coming out of the pen. We could, even end the Kyle Gibson experiment. We're going to go 3 deep. You're going to go Nola, Wheeler, and Ranger Suarez. I mean, that's what you're going to do, right? So you already now have a very, very deep bullpen. You just need them to produce. And I think that the end of it is 100%. That's why I like that David Robertson could be a nice setup guy to get you to Alvarado at the end. Brian says, yeah, that's why Derek Jeter left. How are the Phillies relievers? Listen, man, the Phillies relievers, if they're on point, there was a time where they had the lowest ERA in baseball from a relief standpoint. Right? We were talking about them, how this bullpen was revitalized. And I think that is a big deal. Okay. And I think they can get right back to that level once again. I really do. You need a strong bullpen in the playoffs because it's all situational baseball. Let's remember that. It's all situational baseball. It's situational baseball in the playoffs. You are going 100% by matchups, by gut feelings, because it's game by game. This isn't let's just win the series and then get to the next series. I mean, yes, it is about that, but I mean during the actual regular season, it's always about getting that rubber match and getting to that next series. On the 162 game schedule. This is about get to that next game, live or die with that game. So I think that's most important. Everybody checking in, as always, make sure you're following at Windale Heat Ratio Sports, and most important, make sure you're following at Judge Jigsaw on Instagram and Twitter, and make sure you're following the Final Judgment on podcasts as well. Make sure you're following on podcasts wherever you get your podcast at. It is available. Just type in the Final Judgment and it will come up. And obviously, make sure you're visiting www.seobrand.com for all your digital marketing and leads needs when it comes to general sales. So make sure more on that very, very soon. So in the end, we're gonna spin this to a little Eagles talk. I'm gonna bring in Kayla Santiago. Again, make sure you're tuning in and listen to this, man. It's a fantastic, fantastic interview. We hit all different angles, NFL, sports media. It's going to be great. So make sure you're staying with the show as we swing a little bit into Eagle land and NFL land and check it out. And the full interview will be available on podcast and on the YouTube page as well. CC says Ranger has found it again recently. Zero concerns about him. Only time I want to see Gibby near the field in the postseason is celebrating a win. Listen, what's funny? There was a time where Gibby actually gave us some really good games. And without those good games, we probably wouldn't be where we're at. Okay, but you're absolutely right. Recently, the way he just loses all command. Listen, the one thing about Ranger is those few games he would lose it in like the 5th or 6th inning. We already knew. And he wouldn't lose it completely to where he was missing by, 15 feet, man. He wasn't getting those calls, and Ranger needs to get those inside outside calls in order to be successful. And he wasn't getting them with Kyle Gibson. He would just lose everything altogether. They would just lose everything altogether. So yeah, I'll give you one further, CC. Not only do I just want him celebrating a win, I just want to see him on, sitting on top of the chair in the bullpen, spitting out sunflower seeds and actually getting, new Gatorade for the guys that are actually going to pitch, like Eflin and Alvarado. So that's all I need to see Gibby doing for me. But listen, we don't only just have baseball. Okay, we got a 4-0 football team here with the Philadelphia Eagles that, again, played through a lot of adversity in an unbelievable shit show so to speak, when it comes to rain and wind and field conditions and going up against a former coach who comes in. And, you have a young Jaguars team that's playing very well, a lot of confidence, and it's exactly what we needed. We needed defense to step up, to rattle a young quarterback, which they did. Play through a lot of injuries. Darius Slay goes down. Zach McPherson comes in, plays very well. James Bradberry. Can we not talk enough about James Bradberry and the signing that he was, man? James Bradberry was unbelievable. All the analytics pointed to James Bradberry being the top corner on the market, and why the Giants let him go, we have no idea. But speaking of analytics, a lot of you guys and girls right here who have websites and YouTube pages, social media accounts, you always worry about the analytics and wonder about who's watching, who's listening, who's subscribing, who are they from, where are they from, what are they doing, what do they know? And that's why you need guys like SEObrand.com, been doing it for 15 plus years. They not only give you the direction, they show you the direction. They give you all the analytics, from an SEO standpoint, where your site's going, where your traffic's coming from, how to build traffic. They take cold they take cold sales calls, man, and not only turn them into leads but close the deal. And they show you how to do that as well. Small businesses, big businesses, doesn't matter. No size too big or too small for the guys at SEObrand.com. They've been doing it, like I said, for 15 years. Very trusted within the SEO search engine optimization game. You will not be disappointed. Give them a call. Let them know Jigsaw sent you, and you've seen this ad on the Final Judgment. Now, what I want to do here is, and again, listen, the Phillies talk, you can keep it coming. Listen, we're going to play this interview. I'm going to bring Kayla in. She's going to talk a little bit, about the Philadelphia Eagles, about the NFL, about sports media, about collegiate sports. We'll play a little bit of the interview. It's 30 minutes long. But again, I'm going to play a little bit of it. Check it out. Really good talk to get on this Eagles topic and sports talk. Again, it's late nights, 11:50 or here on the East Coast. If you're staying up, let me know what you're feeling about. Keeping it coming in the comments. I'll address them right after this interview. Keep the comments coming about the Phillies, about the playoffs, about the Eagles, about the NFL. Your biggest takeaways and surprises and disappointments in week 4. I want to hear it all, man. Albert Pujols, again, breaking more records. Want to hear it all. Where do you feel about Albert Pujols? So a lot of great things coming up. But again, make sure you're following at the Final Judgment right here with Tony Jigsaw Cutillo. Make sure you're following Heat Ratio Sports and Win Daily Sports, and make sure you're visiting SEObrand.com as well. Brian, yes, AJ Brown is a beast. Now, here we go. I'm going to bring Kayla Santiago. Make sure you're following her at Kayla_Santiago1. Enjoy this interview. Enjoy this time. And make sure you keep comments coming. I will be back in about 15 minutes. Host Tony Jigsaw Cutillo, and it's Monday. It's the morning after. It's actually the night after, or it could be Tuesday whenever you're watching this interview. But the Eagles are 4-0, and I can't wait to talk about it. As a guest, I have Kayla Santiago. You can follow her at Kayla_Santiago1 on Twitter. She is the play-by-play broadcaster, reporter, anchor, and sports director for Delmarva Sports Network. Also, you may have heard her play-by-play formerly of the Delaware Bluecoats, the Wilmington Blue Rocks. She's covered events on several different levels and is flying up the sports media ladder. Kayla, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Can't wait to talk sports and everything football, NFL as well, because of course that's the season we're really in right now.
It is. Listen, content is king, but NFL is king, right? So it continually takes over. And right now, listen, locally, the Eagles are 4-0. It's hard not, whether you're on a national level, a local level, you can't look the other way with this team. There was plenty of excitement surrounding it during the offseason, but not everybody, and I mean nationally, not everybody was bought in. But now it seems like they're jumping on the wagon. The only question I have for you, is this team for real?
I think you have to watch these games and you have to say absolutely. You're talking about a quarterback in Jalen Hurts that really is only in his second year as a starter in the NFL. And you look at his second-year head coach in Nick Sirianni. The fact that they had so many expectations coming out of the gate, honestly, even when I'm from the Philadelphia area and that's the sport I've watched my whole entire life in the town that I grew up in, I was shocked at the expectations that were placed on a second-year quarterback that was no first-round pick and a second-year head coach. But you look at this Eagles team, and I think they're absolutely legit. And I don't want to hear, oh, well, they haven't played a top team in the NFL. Yeah, they haven't played the Bucs, they haven't played the Chiefs, and they haven't played the Bills. But against the Jaguars, they were the top rushing defense in the NFL, and the Eagles had over 200-plus running yards on Jacksonville with Miles Sanders. So you look at this team right now in all assets of the game, and I've said this before, this is the most complete team in a really, really long time, even including that Super Bowl winning team as well. You look at the Super Bowl winning team, you say, well, Jalen Mills might have been the top corner for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now you look at Darius Slay. Now you look at the secondary as a whole. You also have Avonte Maddox, who has gone leaps and bounds above everything that he needed to be for this team. You look at the linebackers, you look at the defensive line rotation, how they're able to rotate so many guys out at a time. It's not Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham playing every single snap anymore. And then you go on the offensive side of the ball, Jalen Hurts is not just running anymore. He's been able to elevate his passing game so much. Does it have a lot to do with A.J. Brown? Absolutely. But look at the Buffalo Bills. The reason Josh Allen was able to elevate his game was because of Stephon Diggs. So back to your original question, yeah, I absolutely think the Eagles are legit so far.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you. And you made some tremendous points and stuff I've talked about in nauseum over the last year and a half. Like you just mentioned the Buffalo Bills, and the biggest knock on Jalen Hurts was, his completion percentage is low, his accuracy is low. And I kept telling everybody, watch Josh Allen for the first 2 years. He was under 60%. He worked on his mechanics. He formed into the quarterback that he is. And we're getting to see this. And you mentioned Avonte Maddox. I think it's a great point because a lot of people don't understand he played out of position last year. And now he's finally back in the slot where he belongs. And he's excelling again. And you make a great point. We had nobody in 2017. And now we have Pro Bowlers back there.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing. And you look at Avonte Maddox, he was a scratch this week. Scrolling on Twitter through the game, it's not about only missing Darius Slay. People are like, we're really missing Avonte Maddox in that secondary. And if you told me that a year ago, I would probably laugh in your face, to be honest with you. But the way he's been able to step up, and yes, Darius Slay is probably the most talented guy in that secondary. But when you talk of the quarterback of the secondary, a guy who can communicate like anything, who's a leader back there, that's Avonte Maddox. He does stuff off the field that has elevated his game on the field this season. It's really cool to see the jump that he's been able to make, as he's not necessarily talked about as the best guy in the secondary for Philadelphia or in the NFL, but he really, really has done well this year. And when he's not there, it's noticeable.
Yeah, and shout out to James Bradbury for having a huge game. Slay goes injured in the first quarter, so you have Bradbury. Zach McPherson comes in and plays very well. I mean, it's a lot of depth on this team. And you mentioned 2017, and it's funny because, I feel like there's a special kind of feel to this team and the culture they've employed on the sidelines, in the locker room. You saw it yesterday afterwards. You cover the team. You can feel it. You can see it. I mean, can you feel this same 2017 feeling starting to brew again?
I really do. And it's kind of scares me a little bit because I'm like, I don't want to overthink it. We're only in week 4 at this point. But looking at the Eagles right now, and the one thing that reminds me of 2017, it's that next man up mentality. And we saw that this week. You look at Jordan Mailata going down, Isaac Samalu also going down. That offensive line, they're not necessarily as seasoned in terms of rotations like the defensive line is. So you think to yourself, oh, geez, now Jalen Hurts might get hurt, especially with the weather and the rain coming in and it being cold. And 2 of your really good offensive linemen going down. And really, they did a fantastic job coming in for those guys. So that next man up mentality, but also I think it starts with Jalen Hurts. And I think it's the way that he's able to project what he feels and what he wants with this team onto everybody else. It's not about him having a good game and resting on his laurels. And, a lot of guys will say, rent is due every day. I got to be better. I got to do this. But they don't show it out there. Jalen Hurts, as of right now, early in his career, is a guy that is really putting his money where his mouth is at this point in his career, only in year 2 as a starter. And I think it starts with him and the culture that he's created, and that spreads all around the field. And you can just see that chemistry. Obviously, most people are going to get along when you win, and that's just the factuality of it. But at the same time, I think Jalen Hurts has not only taken a leap on the field, but also in the locker room as a leader too.
Yeah, I love the guy. I do. I've been on the all in on Jalen wagon for the last 2 years. I just love the way he puts his face in front of adversity, fights through everything. You can see he's a leader on and off the field. It's great. But speaking of leaders and missing pieces, the one player besides Jalen Hurts that I feel like a key piece of this team's success is Miles Sanders. It's almost like the Miles Sanders mystery all season. His biggest knock was always his health. Weren't they running the ball consistently with him as the RB1? But right now he's healthy. He's producing. He's had 2 back-to-back great games. Can we finally say that he's the RB1 on this team and leave all that nonsense alone?
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I think the injury debate right now, I think you have to put that aside because you look at the running back room without Miles Sanders, and you don't have a running back one. And I will say that I really like Kenny Gainwell and I really like Boston Scott. And I think at least through the first 2 to 3 games, they were doing a big rotation of the 3 of them. And I think that's where people were like, oh, well, it's a rotation running back room. No, it's not, because you looked at this week, Boston Scott is out with a scratch because of his rib injury. Kenny Gainwell doesn't get that many snaps. It's mostly going to Miles Sanders. You're watching him jump off of everybody. He really reminds me of Shady McCoy, how he plays. He hesitates for a little bit. He's able to create holes no matter what. The offensive line did have a really good game in creating holes for him as well, but he's absolutely running back number 1. As me watching the game and, looking at it as a broadcaster point of view and as somebody who loves the game of football, the injury history does worry me a little bit, especially because year after year, that's what has happened. And I think that's why they were doing the rotation so much. I think that's why they weren't giving him so many snaps. But if you watch the game against Jacksonville, there's no doubt in my mind he's running back number 1. He got majority of those snaps because the guy went down. That's who he is, and he has the talent. But can he stay healthy? That's the question.
Yeah, and unfortunately, well, I should say fortunately, it's not like we're talking about major injuries. It's like the Keenan Allen effect. It's these soft tissue injuries, the hamstrings, the groins. It's always something, right? But I think maybe, and I'd like to get your opinion on this. I don't think it was always Miles couldn't do it physically. I don't know what it is with him as a player, but I felt like for him mentally, he needed to feel like he was the guy. He needed to be given that opportunity and just say, all right, I think I am the guy now. And I feel like that's what's happened over these last 2 or 3 weeks. And I think he's really responded to it well.
Yeah, and I think that has to do with the offensive line production as well. And I also, once again, I think it has to do with Jalen Hurts. I think for them, they just have a little bit of better chemistry. I think he knows exactly when the ball is coming to him. I think he exactly knows what he needs to do. And let's talk about his blocking too, because there was times in that game where he was out of the game and Kenny Gainwell couldn't block for his life. And I'm like, if he could just pick up that block right now. Now he's a little bit smaller. He's not as stocky, of course, as Miles Sanders. And I'm sure he will grow that muscle over time. But there's so many things that Sanders does well. The blocking, be able to do those little screen passes, and of course, running the ball. And now he has that confidence. And I think that's the biggest thing. And you go back to that mental state as well. I think it's also the fact that he was injured. I think it's, he was doing so well. He was really proving a lot of people wrong. He was being seen in the eyes of the national media. And then all of a sudden he goes down and he's expected to bounce back right away. Now he's been consistently where he needs to be. And if he can keep that all season long, I think he can be a really, really phenomenal player.
Yeah, he's one of this is the missing piece to me for the Eagles, just to have that guy that they can rely on. So, and there's a reason why I like Kenny Gainwell too, just like you. I like Boston Scott, but there's a reason why they have roles. They will never be that bell cow back. They have roles, so leave them with their roles and let's not overreact. Speaking of, listen, the Eagles are 4-0. We could talk about them all day, but just the NFL in general. Let me just understand. Obviously there's been comings and goings around the NFC, the AFC, but for you, your biggest surprises or biggest disappointment so far? I know it's only 4 weeks, but there's been some interesting storylines throughout.
Yeah, I don't know if this is necessarily a surprise, but looking at the Ravens and just how they haven't been able to close out games, honestly, has been a big surprise to me. I mean, you look at the game the other night, you look at the game against the Dolphins, they can't keep leads. And it's crazy because you look at Lamar Jackson and the production that he's able to have and the trickery plays, and he's able to be like a magician out there and get through everything. But at the end of the day, no matter how many yards you put up, no matter how many good plays you do, you're not in the win column at the end of the day. And that's the biggest thing right now for the Baltimore Ravens. And listen, they have had very, very tough games against the Dolphins, the game a few days ago as well. but you have to close out games if you want to be a team that is really going to contend in the postseason. And I think that's the biggest thing that they have to work on throughout the year. And I've been surprised, honestly, with how lax they are in that fourth quarter and how they're like, this game is won already. And all of a sudden a team's coming back and beating them. And that's just been a big surprise for me. I would also say, and as much as I don't like saying this as growing up watching Philadelphia, the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott goes down. You look at them week 1, they looked horrible. I mean, their offensive line could not protect Dak for 2 seconds. And then Cooper Rush comes in, and I'm not saying he's by any means the choice over Dak Prescott at all, but I think that you look at that and it's like, okay, well, maybe the Cowboys just needed a few games to really get themselves together. They have a lot of injuries. They don't necessarily have that dominant receiver. CeeDee Lamb is really starting to step up into that role, but he's expected to be a lot bigger than he was projected to in week 1. And all of a sudden now he's getting that groundwork in. So I've been a little bit surprised with how they've been able to bounce back from adversity. And then I would say the other disappointment, honestly, to me is the Indianapolis Colts. You look at that team right now, you look at Jonathan Taylor, who I know a lot of people have him in fantasy as the running back number 1. And I told people that he's going to have a good year, top 5 running back in the league. He looks awful because that team, for whatever reason, is just terrible this year. And it's crazy to me. I'm not saying I didn't think they were going to be a playoff team by any means, but I think when you have a dominant running back, you look at the Tennessee Titans, for example, Derrick Henry is always going off. I thought Matt Ryan was going to come to the Colts and be better. I thought he was in a bad system with the Falcons. Maybe he's just not that great of a quarterback, honestly, because at the end of the day, I mean, you have Frank Reich as your head coach and you're not getting anything. Your games are so low scoring. And I thought once again that it was the Falcons system that he needed to get it out of. I never thought he was going to be like a Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. I thought it would be mediocre, but he's even lower than mediocre right now. And the team as a whole, I thought it would just be better. I really did with Jonathan Taylor as the running back number 1. And they have disappointed me this year so far.
So there was Kayla Santiago. That's it. Listen, I was going to play the whole thing. We talked for another 15 minutes where we basically talked about sports media, how you make it into the business, talked about her inspirations as not only a female broadcaster, but a broadcaster in general with play-by-play. And we talked about the world of collegiate sports, the NLL, the players getting revenue, what it takes to become a Division 1 or Division 2 athlete. So a lot of great stuff there. Make sure you're giving her a follow at Kayla_Santiago1. She does fantastic work for the Delmarva Sports Network. She's all over. You can catch her on Jacob Sports, I think on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock. And then make sure you check out, they did an expose on her for an exclusive, I should say, on ABC Channel 6. Jamie Apodi did last year of October. I mentioned that and I referenced that in the article or the interview as well. Just a fantastic voice, up and coming. I can't wait to get her on again to talk a little more. And you hear her talk about the birds, right? She knows that, next up mentality, next guy up. She talks about that offensive line depth. She's talking about the secondary depth. And then we get that interesting discussion with Miles Sanders, which is obviously very, very interesting, who's been extremely productive over the last 2 games. But, let's swing this back, end this show on some more Phillies talk because obviously, listen, it's funny. We talked about, Clinch in the playoffs. We talked about the roller coaster ride of emotions, and we talked about, what kind of team they could be, and obviously, they can be streaky, but if they all get hot at the right time, they're a very, very scary team that maybe nobody wants to face. But you talk about team energy. You talk about Rob Thompson. And, I just watched the clip, and if you can, make sure you get on there. I think it might have been from NBC Sports Philly showing the, Rob Thompson giving his pregame or his postgame speech about, no BP tomorrow, sleep in, you get the laugh. And he talks about how much he's honored to bring, the postseason back to the city of Philadelphia. But lets the players go. They're going crazy. And in typical Rob Thompson fashion, he's getting obliterated with champagne. and he just doesn't even move. He doesn't laugh. He doesn't giggle. He doesn't get mad. He doesn't chuckle. Just, I mean, exactly what you expect from Rob Thompson. So again, just a fantastic, person, and to be able to keep this team even keeled through these rocky emotions, through this roller coaster ride that we call the Major League Baseball postseason. But yeah, listen, the Phillies are in. It's late night. We're getting a reaction on everybody. We've had people checking in from Scotland. My man CC checking in all the way from Scotland, from the UK, talking Phillies baseball. We got my man Tank checking in, kind of busting my stones a little bit because I am out with an injury right now that I'm getting some treatment for. So hopefully, listen, I just want to walk normal again, and I can tell you right now that any athlete out there that's ever had an Achilles injury, I pray for you. I do, because I got lucky, but I'm telling you, man. You talk about hurt, worst pain I've ever felt before in my life. So thankfully, things are getting better on that front. So as always, make sure you're following Heat Ratio Sports, Win Daily Sports. Make sure you're following the flagship sponsor of this show, SEObrand.com. And again, make sure you're following at Judge Jigsaw on Instagram and Twitter. And make sure you're following the YouTube page, The Final Judgment, with Tony Jigsaw Cutillo. This is my platform to talk all things sports. On Monday shows, it's always going to be the judgments of what happened with the Eagles game, what happened in the NFL, Major League Baseball obviously going on, the Sixers. I had some Sixers talk coming in really soon. I get some Sixers reporters on here like I do for the Eagles and for the Phillies as well. That should be fun. But again, we'll have football Fridays, which will be either Thursday night or Friday morning, where we give out some best DFS plays and best bets, courtesy of Win Daily Sports, to get you ready for fantasy football weekend, obviously, and just a lot of other things going on too. I just got, this will be the next. You saw my interview a few weeks ago with Dan Levette for the International Bulk Book, baseball innovation and cheating. I just got this book right here, America's Classic Ballparks, celebrating parks past and present. Can't wait for that. This is by James Buckley Jr., who another author. When we come talk about Major League Baseball and the history and nostalgia factor of it, I will have him on the show pretty soon, talking about why he wrote this book, talking about the ballparks of present and past he has visited, what should be on the list, some interesting statistics from those ballparks, trying to give you guys a little something different. Okay, trying to give you something a little different, and fun as well, and informative. So I just want to, I don't want this to be just a vent session or a bitch session, so to speak, where I'm just complaining about everything. Obviously, I will do that from time to time. That's where I get the Jigsaw name. But I want it to be informative and fun, and I want to be fan friendly as well. So tonight was great. A lot of great comments. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hopefully they are new subscribers and they'll continue to watch this show, and we'll continue to be there and support each other in all our venues. But listen, I'm going to sign off for the night here on the Final Judgment with Tony Jigsaw Cutillo. Like I always say, and will continue to say, stay safe, stay healthy. But most importantly, some people have thoughts, some people have takes, but only here right now on this show do you get the Final Judgment.